In a world obsessed with short-form content, fast scrolls, and algorithm hacks, podcasting is quietly becoming one of the most powerful and profitable tools in long-term marketing. And the numbers speak for themselves. The podcast industry is projected to reach $17.5 billion by 2023, and that's US dollars. In 2025, 584 million people will tune into podcasts, and ad spend is expected to exceed $4.5 billion. Why? Because podcasts don't just build reach, they build trust, attention, and influence. So whether you're a coach, consultant, or service-based business, if you've been wondering if podcasting is worth the effort, this is the episode for you. I'm Leanne Cohens, founder of Marketing Leap, and after 12 years helping business owners build brands with staying power, I can tell you this. If you're creating content week after week and still struggling to get seen, it's time to rethink your strategy. Today, we're talking about how to use podcasting as a pillar strategy, not just to get visible, but to build a platform that fuels your content, nurtures your leads, and positions you as an expert in your space. Now, when I first started Marketing Leap 12 years ago, podcasting wasn't even on the radar for most businesses. Back then, we were leaning into blogging, organic SEO, and good old-fashioned networking to build a brand. And before that, in my previous business life, I was literally on the radio running ads to get people into our retail stores or visiting our stands at the various house and garden shows. So I've always known the power of audio. But what podcasting offers now is something even more powerful: visibility that compounds. See, unlike your Instagram stories or LinkedIn posts that disappear in 24 hours or just simply get buried under the algorithm, a podcast episode doesn't vanish. It's searchable, it's subscribable, and most importantly, it's sticky. People come back to it. They binge it. They discover you through an old episode, then listen to 5 more. It builds momentum. And I've been marketing long enough to remember when radio was one of the best ways to reach people on the go. And that's why, in my previous businesses, that's exactly what we used. Good old-fashioned radio ads to drive traffic. Fast forward to today, and podcasting has taken that same convenience and accessibility to a whole new level. Your audience can listen while walking the dog, driving to work, or even prepping dinner. It's content that fits into people's lives, and that means they actually stick with it. Unlike a post that disappears in a 24-hour cycle, a podcast episode stays discoverable. People can find your message weeks, months, or even years later. And that's why podcasting is one of the best ways to create evergreen visibility. You're not just producing content for now. You're building a library of authority that works while you sleep. And that's the real magic of podcasting. It becomes the center of your content ecosystem. From one well-crafted episode, I've got YouTube content, short-form reels, blog posts, email newsletters, and even carousel posts. And all of it feeds back to my core message consistently. Podcasting doesn't just give you visibility once. It gives you visibility over and over again. And it's long-form content that actually lasts. And that's something that a lot of the marketing channels can't say. And something to remember, social content disappears with the scrolls. Podcasts stick around and they keep working. So let's talk about voice. And I don't just mean the sound of it. One of the most powerful things about podcasting is that it gives you space to speak in your natural tone, whether you're storytelling, teaching, coaching, or just talking through a concept. You don't have to cram your message into a 60-second reel or edit it down to a perfect Instagram caption. You can take your time. You can explain and you can connect. And this is what most people miss. It's not just the information that resonates. It's the energy behind it. Your voice, your pace, your emphasis, and the way that you explain things all creates a sense of familiarity. Listeners begin to feel like they know you, and that's where the real trust begins. It's not about having a perfectly scripted show or sounding like a polished radio announcer. In fact, I've found the episodes where I speak more freely and where I get a little bit more of me through are the ones that get the best response. Because people aren't looking for perfect. They're looking for real, for someone who understands their challenges and for someone who gets it. And that's what your voice delivers. So your voice is actually your secret sauce. Don't outsource the one thing that can actually build real connection. Another thing to remember is podcast listeners are intentional. They choose to press play. They're not mindlessly scrolling. They're showing up for you. So let's talk about trust and why podcast listeners are some of the most valuable members of your audience. Unlike Instagram or YouTube, where people stumble across your content in a scroll or a search, podcast listeners are intentional. They choose to press play. They're not killing time. They're giving you their time. And that's the big difference. In fact, the stats back this up. The average podcast listener tunes in for around 30 to 40 minutes per episode. Compare that to the average YouTube watch time, which hovers around 6 to 7 minutes, or the few fleeting seconds that someone might spend on an Instagram reel. There's your comparison. So while social media might get you seen, podcasting gets you heard. And that kind of attention, that kind of focus is what builds trust over time. I recently had someone book a strategy session and say, I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I feel like I already know you. And that wasn't a cold call. It wasn't awkward. It felt like a continuation of a conversation that we'd been having for weeks, because in their mind, we had been. And that's the power of podcasting. It converts quietly. You might not see likes or comments, but trust is compounding behind the scenes, one episode at a time. So if you're wondering whether it's worth it, it absolutely is. Because trust doesn't start at the checkout. It starts with your voice in someone's ear. And this segment is all about showing you how you can make podcasting beyond just another content channel. I want you to see it as the core asset, the foundation for your blog posts, your LinkedIn articles, your YouTube videos, reels and shorts, email, website content, everything. Because when you stop thinking of your podcast episode as a one and done piece and start seeing it as the engine that actually powers your entire content ecosystem, your marketing becomes exponentially smarter. And let's use some numbers to bring this to life. Worldwide, podcast listening is forecast to hit 584 million in 2025, showing a 6.8% year-on-year increase. One strong episode can continue attracting listeners and leads for months, even years later, not just the first week it lands. And that's what evergreen visibility means. And when you compare formats, the average podcast listening sessions regularly run 30 to 40 minutes versus YouTube videos, which hover in the 7 to 15 minute range. That time investment means deeper engagement, which makes repurposing that episode into blogs, emails, social snippets, and carousels not just possible, but effective. That's how we've done it for Marketing Leap. We record one well-structured episode, then we extract a blog post summarizing the key points, a LinkedIn article expanding a specific angle, a YouTube version, both audio and full video, 4 to 6 short-form clips, which are reels and shorts with punchy quotes, an email sequence that leads back to the full episode, and then social posts that reference insights, quotes, or questions. And the result? We've stopped spinning the content hamster wheel. We stopped creating entirely new pieces every single day, and instead we're working smarter because that one podcast feeds our entire month of content, and as time goes on, it brings continued visibility, long-tail traffic, and authority. Your podcast isn't content, it's your strategy, your sales funnel, and your authority all rolled into one. And podcasting works, not just because it's trendy or you want to be another Joe Rogan. It works because it gives you what social media has stripped away, and that's time, trust, and the space to actually be heard. Because between AI and social media, everyone is a content creator now. Every scroll is packed with Canva carousels, AI-generated scripts, and short-form videos trying to hack attention in 3 seconds or less. And yes, some of them work, but most, they get lost in the noise. And that's the shift that we're seeing. It used to be that influencers had all the clout. Now, authority cuts through. Because in a world where everyone has a platform, what people are really looking for is credibility and depth. Someone who doesn't just talk about the thing, but actually knows it, lives it, teaches it, and delivers results. And podcasting gives you the runway to do that. It's not about being an influencer. It's about being the expert, the trusted voice, and the go-to person in your space. Because let's face it, people don't buy from you because you posted 17 trending reels. They buy because they trust you. And trust doesn't happen in a 15-second swipe. It happens over time, through consistency, through stories, context, nuance, and experience, all of which you get to deliver inside a podcast episode. And here's the kicker. Podcasting doesn't just build authority for the sake of ego. It builds trust that drives action. Whether it's joining your list, booking a call, or saying yes to your offer, it moves people forward, not just entertains them. So if you're serious about building trust, visibility, and long-term brand growth, podcasting is still one of the smartest moves you can make. It's not about chasing trends or going viral. It's about having a platform where you can lead the conversation, share your insights, and become the voice that your audience trusts. Your podcast doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Your voice, your perspective, your stories. Because that's what builds authority. That's what builds connection, and that's what turns listeners into clients consistently. So if you're ready to turn your ideas into influence and finally build a content engine that works with your marketing strategy and not against it, we can help. At Marketing Leap, we support business owners just like you with podcast strategy, content repurposing, and marketing systems that compound over time. So head over to marketingleap.net to book your strategy session, and let's build a voice that grows your brand long after you hit publish. Now, in my next episode, we are unpacking how to tell the kind of brand stories that connect, convert, and actually stick. And I'll be talking about the psychology behind emotional resonance, why human-led stories outperform even the smartest AI copy, and how to use storytelling frameworks without sounding scripted. If you've ever struggled to talk about what you do without sounding boring, vague, or too polished, you won't want to miss this episode. I'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in to the Digital Success for Business podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on YouTube for even more tips.